You disappointed us. Parents said and gave my savings to my stepsister for the wedding and kicked me out. I didn't argue and left. On the wedding day, I aimed to shock everyone and now you let us down, my father said, his face hard and unyielding. Diane stood next to him with her arms crossed, as if she dared me to say anything back. Jessica smiled from the corner of the room, clearly loving every second of it. They wanted my $15,000. My savings. The money I'd worked every weekend and late shift for 2 years to save for college. And now, because I refused to hand it over for Jessica's wedding, I was the bad guy. It's for my future, I said. You told me you weren't going to help with college. That's why I worked for it. Dad didn't care. Diane didn't care. All that mattered was Jessica's dream wedding to her shady 41-year-old boyfriend, Bradley. It's not about money, Diane said, shaking her head as if I was being ridiculous. It's about family. You're being selfish. I almost laughed. Family? Jessica barely acknowledged me on a good day. Diane treated me like an unwanted guest. And Dad, well, he hadn't been on my side from the moment I moved in. He never believed in me. Never supported me. But I kept my mouth shut. I knew how this was going to go, so I just walked away. There was no point in arguing with them. That night, I put my savings back in the safe. I'd been hiding the money there ever since I started saving. The safe belonged to Dad, but he never paid much attention to it, or so I thought. I had no idea what was about to happen. The next morning I checked the safe and froze. The money was gone. Every last dollar. I tore through the little compartment, hoping maybe it was a mistake. But it wasn't. My savings were gone, and there was only one explanation. Dad had taken it. He owned the safe, and he had the code. He'd gone in, taken my future, and given it to Jessica for her ridiculous wedding. I stormed out to confront him, but he was already waiting for me. I took it, he said like it was no big deal. It's for Jessica. She needs it more than you do right now. Are you serious? You stole my money. I shot back. How am I supposed to go to college now? You'll figure it out, he said coldly. But right now you have to leave. We can't have anyone in this house who isn't supporting the family. Diane added, We've had enough of your attitude. Pack your things. Jessica didn't even bother to pretend to be sorry. She just smiled, as if watching this was some kind of victory for her. I stood there for a moment, trying to take it in. I couldn't believe it. My own father had stolen from me and now they were going to kick me out for not going along with their plan. I didn't bother to argue. I just turned around, walked into the room I shared with Alex, and started packing my things. Alex, my stepbrother, sat on the top bunk and watched quietly. We were close, and he knew exactly how messed up this was. Man, I can't believe they did this, he muttered, shaking his head. That's your money. They don't care, I said, stuffing clothes into my backpack. It's all about Jessica. If you need anything, just let me know, Alex said quietly. Thanks, I replied, appreciating the gesture. Alex was the only person in this house who ever had my back. But now there was nothing he could do. I left the house without looking back. Diane hurled a few insults at me as I left, calling me ungrateful and a failure, but I didn't care. They'd already taken everything from me. I wasn't going to let them see me break. I moved in with Rebecca, my mother's cousin. She didn't ask many questions and gave me a place to stay while I figured things out. I was angry about losing my savings, but I wasn't going to let them get away with it. They thought they could steal my money and use it to pay for their fantasy wedding? They had no idea what they were in for. Over the next few weeks, Alex kept me in the loop. Jessica was going full steam ahead with the wedding plans, completely oblivious to the truth about Bradley. She thought she was marrying a rich, successful businessman. But I knew the truth. Bradley was already married. He had a wife and children back in Nevada, and he wasn't even close to rich. He was a broke gambler with a drinking problem. Jessica didn't know any of this. But I did, and I had a plan. The date was set. The invitations were sent. Everyone was excited about the big day. They thought they were getting their perfect moment. But I was about to blow it all up. They had stolen my future. Now I was going to steal theirs. The wedding day finally arrived. I stood outside the venue and watched the guests arrive. They'd chosen a fancy outdoor garden to make it look like they were part of a high society event. Jessica was wearing a sparkly white dress, clearly trying to look like royalty. Diane and Dad played the proud parents, grinning for the cameras. Bradley was there, pretending not to have a double life. It was all so fake. But today was going to be real in a way none of them expected. I wasn't alone. I'd spent the last few weeks digging for information on Bradley. It wasn't too hard to find his wife, Denise. I even contacted her, told her the truth about what her husband had done. At first she didn't believe me. But after I showed her photos of him and Jessica together, and receipts for the gifts he'd been throwing around, she went dead silent. I thought she was going to hang up, but then she said one thing that changed everything. "Tell me where the wedding is." So here we were. Denise had driven all the way from Nevada to crash this circus. But it wasn't just her. She brought her 2 teenage children. Denise didn't want to make a scene right away. "Let's wait until the ceremony starts," she said, her voice calm but cold. "I want him to feel safe, like he's going to get away with it before we tear it down." I couldn't help but respect her plan. Bradley had played her and Jessica for fools, and now both women were going to make him pay. The ceremony began. I stayed hidden in the back as they walked down the aisle. Jessica looked like she was on cloud 9. Bradley stood there with that slimy grin of his, probably thinking he had both women under control. He had no idea what was about to happen. When the bailiff asked if anyone had any objections, I tensed up, expecting Denise to stand up right then and there. But she didn't. She waited. It wasn't until after the vows were exchanged and they moved on to signing the marriage license that she made her move. "Stop!" Denise's voice cut through the crowd. Heads turned as she marched down the aisle, her children behind her. Jessica froze, her eyes wide. Bradley's face turned ashen. For a moment, no one knew what was happening. Then Denise spoke again, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This man is already married. To me." The whole crowd gasped. Jessica's jaw dropped. Diane got up from her seat, stammering, while Dad just looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. Bradley tried to stammer out an excuse, but Denise wasn't having it. "Oh, don't even try," she snapped, holding up photos and paperwork. "You lied to her just like you lied to me. You're a cheater, and you've been cheating on me for months." Jessica staggered back and looked at Bradley in shock. "Is this true?" she demanded. Bradley had no answer. The silence spoke for itself. Diane jumped to her feet, screaming at Denise, calling her a liar, but Denise wasn't fazed. She held up evidence, photos of their house, text messages, everything. It was undeniable. The guests whispered, pulling out their cell phones to record the chaos. Jessica broke down in tears, screaming at Bradley, who was too stunned to do anything but stand there. Meanwhile, I stood in the back, watching it all unfold with a quiet sense of satisfaction. But then something unexpected happened. Alex appeared at my side. "You didn't think I was going to let you do this alone, did you?" I blinked in surprise. "How did you know I'd be here?" "I heard Dad and Diane talking about how they were finally going to fix the family image today," he said, rolling his eyes. "Figured you had something planned." He grinned. "You didn't disappoint." We both stood there watching the scene unfold. Bradley tried to make a run for it, but Denise wasn't done with him yet. "Oh, no, you're not," she said, grabbing his arm. "You're coming home with me. We have divorce papers to sign." Jessica sobbed uncontrollably and Diane tried to calm her down. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. I could hear him muttering something about how this would ruin their reputation. "Let's go," Alex said, nudging me. "We've done enough damage here." I nodded. We walked out of the place, leaving the chaos behind. I felt free for the first time in years. They had taken my money, my trust, but they couldn't take my dignity. I knew it wasn't over. I'd still have to rebuild my life. But knowing that I'd uncovered the truth made it all worthwhile. As we walked down the street, Alex chuckled. Man, I wish I had recorded that. It was like something out of a movie. Yeah, I said, smiling for the first time in a long time. But we lived it. And I wasn't done yet. Bradley didn't waste time making himself a problem. A day after the wedding disaster, he parked outside my work. I was taking out the trash when he cornered me by the dumpster. You ruined my life, kid, he snarled, stepping closer. You think you can just walk away from this? I wasn't intimidated. You ruined your own life, Brad. You lied to everyone. This is on you. He grabbed my arm. You're gonna regret crossing me. People like me don't just disappear. I shoved his hand off me. You really want to do this here? I'm not scared of you. And if you touch me again, you'll have bigger problems than a ruined wedding. But I knew Brad wouldn't just give up, and I wasn't about to take any chances. That night, I called my mom again. Mom, I said as soon as she picked up. I need your help. Brad's been threatening me. Her tone shifted immediately. Bradley? The guy Jessica was marrying? What's he been doing? I explained everything. The stalking, the phone calls, how he tried to intimidate me at work. Mom went quiet for a second. Then, with icy resolve, she said, I'll handle him. The next day, Mom showed up in person. I met her outside my job, and she hugged me tight. Where is he? She asked, glancing around. Brad? He's been hanging around here, but I haven't seen him yet today, I said. Good. Let's go for a walk. If he shows up, let me talk to him. We didn't have to wait long. Just as we turned the corner near my work, Brad's car pulled up. He stepped out, looking smug, until he saw her. Mom squared her shoulders and walked right up to him. So you're the one threatening my son, she said, her voice calm but full of authority. Let's get one thing straight. If you come near him again, you're going to jail. And trust me, I'll make sure every scam you've ever run is brought to light. Brad blinked, caught off guard. This doesn't concern you, he stammered. Oh, it concerns me. You think you're tough? You're nothing but a lying coward, she shot back. I know all about your wife, your gambling debts, everything. You're done, Bradley. You've got two options: walk away and stay out of our lives, or face the full weight of the law. He tried to bluster, but Mom wasn't having it. Get in your car. Now. And don't ever come near my son again. Brad muttered something under his breath but backed off. He climbed into his car and sped off, his tough guy act shattered. I stood there stunned. Wow. That was impressive. Mom smiled. No one messes with my kid. But she wasn't done yet. The following day, she told me we were going to visit a lawyer. It's time to deal with your father, she said. We met with a no-nonsense attorney who listened carefully as I explained how Dad had stolen my savings from the safe. The lawyer was clear. Taking that money without my permission, even from a family safe, was theft. We had a solid case to get it back. Now we just need to let your father know what's at stake, the lawyer said. We drove to Dad's house that afternoon. I wasn't sure how it would go, but Mom was in full control. Alex texted me as soon as we arrived. Mom's here with a lawyer? This is gonna be good. We knocked, and Diane answered. Her expression soured when she saw Mom standing there with the lawyer. What do you want? She snapped. Is Thomas's father home? The lawyer asked. Dad appeared moments later, looking confused and nervous. What's this about? He asked. The lawyer wasted no time. Mr. Parker, you illegally took $15,000 from your son. That's theft, plain and simple. We're here to give you a chance to return the money. If you don't, we'll pursue legal action. Diane's face went pale. We didn't steal anything. That money was in our safe. It belongs to the family. Mom stepped forward. That money was Thomas's. He worked for it, saved it for college. You had no right to touch it. Dad tried to argue. Look, we needed it for Jessica's wedding. I don't care what you needed it for. The lawyer interrupted. Legally, it's his money. You have 1 week to return the full amount, or we'll see you in court. Diane sputtered in outrage, but Dad knew they were cornered. He muttered, Fine. I'll get the money. We left after that, and Alex texted me again. Dad looks like someone ran over his dog. Diane's furious. This is legendary. A few days later, the money was back in my account. Every cent. I transferred it to a new bank where Dad couldn't access it. As for Bradley, he was gone. Denise had filed for divorce, and he'd left town to avoid more legal trouble. Jessica, humiliated and heartbroken, moved out soon after. Mom stayed with me for a few more days, just to make sure everything settled down. We talked a lot, about Dad, about why she left him, and about how much she regretted not being there sooner. But she promised she wouldn't disappear from my life again. And I believed her. With the money back and the threats behind me, I finally felt like I had control of my life again. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was moving forward. And this time, I wasn't alone. Life started calming down after we got the money back. Bradley was gone, Denise had the divorce in motion, and Jessica had packed her things and left town. But Diane and Dad? They were a different story. They were livid. Alex told me they were blaming me for everything. Diane said I'd ruined the family's reputation, and that they were being gossiped about everywhere. Dad was sulking, barely leaving the house. It was like everything had come crashing down on them, and they didn't know how to handle it. I wasn't even mad, I found it funny. After everything they'd done to me, they were getting exactly what they deserved. But things took a surprising turn. About 2 weeks after everything settled, Alex texted me out of the blue. Dude, you won't believe this, he wrote. What's going on? I asked. Dad's losing his job. Something about unpaid debts. I blinked at the message. Apparently, Bradley wasn't the only one with financial problems. I hadn't known this before, but Dad had been in trouble with money for a while. He'd been borrowing from people, probably expecting Bradley to help him out eventually, and now the bills were coming due. Diane had been counting on Jessica's marriage to Bradley to bail them out. But with that mess blown apart, they were in deep trouble. It wasn't long before they had to sell the house. Alex told me they were moving into a small apartment, and Diane was bitter about it every day. Dad kept trying to reach out to me after that. He called a few times, leaving vague messages, but I didn't feel the need to talk to him. He'd made his choices, and I'd finally learned not to keep chasing his approval. Mom, on the other hand, was more present in my life than she'd been in years. We talked often, and she even helped me map out my college plans. She admitted it had been hard for her to leave all those years ago, but she was proud of how I'd stood up for myself. Having her back in my corner meant more to me than I could say. As for Alex, we stayed close. He'd had enough of Diane's nonsense and started making plans to leave. A few months later, he called me and said he was moving out. Finally got a job offer in a different city, he said. I'm done living with those two. It's your turn to laugh at me getting out now. You know I'm proud of you, man, I said. You've been dealing with that crap for too long. Same to you. Honestly, you taught me how to stand up for myself. After Alex left, things got even worse for Dad and Diane. I heard through the grapevine that Dad tried to contact some of his old friends for help, but no one wanted anything to do with him anymore. Diane eventually left him, moving in with one of her relatives out of state. I wasn't surprised. When their world fell apart, they turned on each other like vultures. Meanwhile, I was thriving. I got a better job, continued saving for college, and finally had some peace of mind. Alex and I kept in touch regularly. We'd trade stories about how ridiculous things used to be, and it felt good to laugh about it all instead of being stuck in that nightmare. One day, Mom and I were sitting on the back porch of her house, just talking about life. She looked at me and said, I hope you know how proud I am of you. You didn't let any of them break you. I smiled. I didn't do it alone. You came through when I needed you. I'll always come through now, she said. I promise. And I believed her. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't trapped anymore. I had my freedom, my family, at least the parts that truly cared, and a future ahead of me that was mine to shape. I was done with Dad and Diane. They'd made their bed, and now they had to lie in it. As for me, I was finally climbing the mountain they had tried to bury me under. And this time, I wasn't looking back. A few months after Alex moved out, I got another text from him. Guess what? Diane left Dad. He's all alone now. I couldn't help but chuckle. Wow. I didn't think she'd stay forever, but that was quick. Yeah, apparently she ran off to live with her cousin in Arizona. Couldn't take the stress anymore. Alex wrote. The news spread quickly through the extended family. No one felt sorry for Dad. In fact, most of them began to avoid him. He'd burned too many bridges over the years, and now he had none left. Even some of Diane's relatives were making fun of him behind his back. I heard from a family friend that people called him the man who bet everything on a fake wedding and lost. He deserves it, Alex said when we spoke on the phone. You should hear some of the things people are saying. They're all laughing about how pathetic he's become. He tried to call Aunt Linda for help and she hung up on him. It was strange to know that the man who had once loomed so large in my life was now a joke to everyone around him. But honestly, I didn't feel sorry for him. He made his choices. He put Diane and Jessica on a pedestal, took my money and threw me out like I was nothing. Now he was reaping what he'd sown. Do you think he'll ever apologize? Alex asked. Probably not. But I don't care. He's not worth the effort, I said. We both laughed at the thought of Dad sitting alone in that tiny apartment, stewing in his own misery. It wasn't revenge, it was karma. And it felt good to know that I had finally moved on while he was stuck in the wreckage of his own bad choices.